Hey, it's me again. So, before I show the video, I just want to plug something really quick. Last year I started a Patreon, but I realized Patreon kinda sucks, so I made a Ko-Fi instead. If you like my art, which you probably don't, you'll want to hear me out. Now, for just $15, you'll get a nice little black and white sketch if you support me on Ko-Fi. Later on, I'll see if I can add more detailed commissions like the ones I'm showing on the screen right now, but for now, consider giving me money for my art. It would be really cool if you would do that. Okay, back to the video. You guys want to hear a funny story? So I was going to work on that Batman Arkham video, and I'm fairly into the game, and I have a script for it in progress, but then someone was at my doorstep, and it was none other than the legend himself, Uncle Aaron! I'm not kidding, all of that actually happened. Finally, I own the revolutionary console for having a Finally, I own the revolutionary console famous for having a total of no games. This is also my first console that isn't Nintendo related. Yeah, fun fact, I was one of the first COVID patients when I was born 19 years ago. As a result, I have no taste. Well, anyway, I'm lucky to actually have some stuff to play on here, even if two of these games are ones I already own on PC. The console comes with a game pre-installed, Astro's Playroom. I was pretty surprised to see that this came with a platformer pre-installed, and a pretty damn good one too. It uses all the controller's features to its fullest, and everything in the game is full of beauty and wonder. Everything is full of PlayStation references, and this game made me feel right at home. I want to make a video on it later down the road, but for now, if you don't own a PS5, I'd recommend it for Astro's Playroom alone. I say this because the damn thing doesn't have any other game. The PS5 also has another exclusive that I happen to own. This is one that a lot of people were anticipating for years, and I'm lucky enough to be reviewing it right now. Strap in because I'm gonna be reviewing Spider-Man 2. I already talked about the other two Spider-Man games made by Insomniac, the first one and Miles Morales' a spin-off. No matter what games people prefer, the general consensus is that these games are both amazing in their own ways, and they get what it means to be Spider-Man. The first game had a better story, but the second one refined the gameplay and focused on that more than its story. But how do you follow that up and evolve the formula a third time? Ever since the teaser images were released, two things were known from the get-go. For one, this game would have us play as both Peter and Miles, as opposed to just one of them. The other thing that we knew is that this game would feature one of Spider-Man's most iconic villains of all time. When you think of Spider-Man villains, there's one that probably a lot of people think of. That's right, Avi Arad! But he isn't in this game, it's Venom who's featured. As time went on, more information was revealed about the game, such as more villains joining the roster like Sandman, the Lizard, and most prominently Kraven the Hunter. We also knew that Peter would be infected with the symbiote at some point in the game, granting him new abilities to go with his new suit. Minor nitpick, but I was never a fan of how Peter's black suit looked in the game. I'm fine with the suit looking more alien, but this just looks kind of weird. He looks like a lizard. My favorite incarnation of the black suit has to be from the Spectacular Spider-Man show. Everything from that show is my favorite Spider-Man thing, but whatever.
I am the Spectacular Spider-Man! He said it!
Back to the game, we finally got a big look at the game with its story trailer. The presentation was beautiful as expected. They slightly redesigned Peter, Miles, and Mary Jane to show that they've grown a little. By far, I think MJ looks the best. I can't really speak on Miles' new look. It's not my place since I'm not black. Though I took a look online and a lot of people were pretty divided on Miles' new hair. Okay, this I can speak on. Peter's hair looks so fucking weird. I get that they wanted to show that he aged, but they could have given him a better hairstyle. Who was his barber? Octavius? With new villains, instant fast travel, the black suit, and a twice as big New York, and two Spider-Men, this was shaping up to be one of 2023's many hype releases. Only question is, does it live up to it? Let's not waste any more time. Also, this review has spoilers, so if you care, then play the game first.
No, but you gotta see this.
Picking up where Peter left off from the first game, he got a new job as a science teacher at Miles' school, but class was cancelled when Sandman is suddenly set free and starts wreaking havoc in the city. So the game really opens up with a big action sequence with Sandman and the two spiders. Before continuing, let's discuss the combat of each Spider-Man. Sadly, all the gadgets from Spider-Man 1 are gone. Rest in peace, Impact Web. In its place, Spider-Man 2 uses the Miles Morales template and only letting us select a few gadgets toggleable by pressing L1 or R1, plus any of the main buttons. Miles retains his Venom abilities, and Peter summons giant mechanical spider legs that kind of pissed me off after having to endure the mess that was the MCU's Spider-Man. But other than that, the combat is still relatively the same. You can dodge attacks, build up a meter that either leads to a finisher or a healing opportunity, and you can make the combat more advanced the more you unlock from your skill tree. Peter has one, Miles has one, and there's a shared skill tree that applies to both of them. Back to the story, Peter displays his knowledge by using Miles' electricity to defeat Sandman. Sandman goes to prison, but Peter was away from his class for too long, making the principal fire him, because what Spider-Man media wouldn't be complete without absolute pain. Meanwhile, in Madagascar, Kraven the Hunter makes his first big budgeted appearance. He chooses New York as his new hunting ground, establishing his role as one of the more prominent threats. Kraven's hunters make their appearance known to everyone when the Scorpion and Mr. Negative are being transferred. Miles makes it his life's mission to find Lee while working on his college essay, and meanwhile, Peter's subplot has him be reunited with Harry Osborn. In the first game, we learned that Harry was in a tank being treated for his disease, with Norman using a trip to Europe as a cover. Now that he's out, he has his new research station up and running, with the goal being to heal the world. One of the scientists working there is reformed Dr. Kurt Connors, which was formerly the Lizard. Let's take a step back from the story and talk more about the gameplay, specifically the swinging. There's little to no changes here. It's pretty much the same level of fluidity and polish from Spider-Man Miles Morales. In other words, the swinging is still the best part of the game, but they decided to take the swinging a step further by adding the web wings. Pressing the triangle button lets your spiders zoom through the sky like a flying squirrel. You press up and down to level yourself and gain height and momentum, but you'll hit the ground eventually. People thought this was gonna overshadow the web swinging, but to me, I just find it to be a welcome addition and a natural way to evolve the open world traversal system. With the web wings, you can move through wind currents for a more direct route across New York. This makes Spider-Man 2 the first good video game to feature a red and blue superhero flying through rings. That said, the swinging is home to my first nitpick in the game. Okay. So here's the swinging music from Spider-Man 1. Now here's the swinging music in Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2's is a massive downgrade. Like, the first one and Miles' theme, both of their swinging themes are the most iconic songs in their games. Peter's theme is grandiose and upbeat and kind of magical. The song that plays as you swing across New York makes you feel like a superhero. And Miles' theme does the same things that Peter does, but it adds a little bit of flavor to it. It distinguishes both of them perfectly, and it makes you feel right at home when you're playing as either one and hearing their theme blazing as you swing by. Meanwhile, Spider-Man 2's swinging music is just the same motifs, but with the added flavor of cardboard. I know that's just a minor nitpick, but I feel like mentioning it. It just felt so off playing the game when the entire game sounds like it's permanently stuck in its second act. Anyway, the swinging is essentially the same. There's a lot of collectibles and challenges to be found across the city, like the Sandman memories and Mysterio challenges. Some things are split between Peter stuff and Miles stuff, like only Peter doing sciencey stuff and Miles doing Mysterio challenges and Prowler stashes. Of course, I didn't do them at all because I didn't want to get another horrible beat from Uncle Aaron. That's probably not the reward for them, but it's better to be safe than sorry.
NYC ain't ready for a Prowler Spidey mixtape.
Do you know what this means? It means
But regardless, I'm glad these games have this much variety put into them. This isn't just Spider-Man, it's Sonic the Hedgehog. And Angry Birds. Also, the stealth is pretty much the same, except they added the ability to shoot tight ropes from your web shooters in order to have more walking space for takedowns. Just like the web wings, it's a welcome addition to the existing gameplay and a natural way to build upon it. Back to the story, during an attack from Kraven's hunters on Coney Island, Harry reveals that he has superpowers and the villains kidnap Tombstone, who had a side mission dedicated to beating him but was reformed and became a functioning member of society in this game. I left out a lot of things in my review of the first two, whoops. For example, Screwball. I hate Screwball. So anyway, Harry is the host of the symbiote. For now, this isn't that big of an issue, but trust me, there's things I don't like about this version of Harry Osborn and Venom. More on that later. A positive thing about him is that they spend some time together and their performances really sell that they've been friends for years. That's another thing I didn't mention from the other video. The voice acting is great, especially Yuri Lowenthal, who voices Peter Parker. When Peter and Harry go rescue Tombstone, we see that Harry's trying to copy Peter's style, all down to wearing a Spider-Man emblem on his costume. I'm sure that won't be important later. Also, minor nitpick, but the symbiote is normally weak towards fire. This location would have been a perfect way to introduce the fire weak. Whatever. I'm not some nerd that cares about comic accuracy because comics are for idiots.
You're Spider-Man. You're the amazing Spider-Man. You're the spectacular Spider-Man.
Oh, fuck. The MJ stealth missions are back. I thought we decided to leave these in the first game. Why would they bring... Yeah, so a surprising highlight were the MJ sections. They're the same as they were in Spider-Man 2, but she has a gun and can take enemies down herself. Amazing how giving this girl a gun was the way to drastically improve the gameplay from being just okay to making me laugh like an idiot when I take down enemies. I want to see a Resident Evil spin-off starring her. Make it happen, Insomniac. But enough about that. I'm genuinely curious. When I googled Toxic Yuri, why are the search results filled with girls kissing? I thought Symbiote Peter was Toxic Yuri. So when Pete, Harry, and MJ go on a mission to rescue Dr. Connors that ends up not succeeding, Peter gets stabbed and fucking dies. Okay. As Peter's dying, the symbiote ditches Harry and attaches itself onto Peter, giving him newfound strength and powers. With the symbiote, Peter has a new set of combat moves that replace his mechanical legs, at least until later. These feel really cool, and you get the sense that he's more powerful with it. Of course, he needs to figure out how to get the suit off of him and back onto Harry, because without it, Harry starts to get sick again. But they also have to look for the lizard and revert him back to his human form. I think now would be a good time to mention that this game has probably the most creative and engaging bosses in the series so far. When you parry their attacks, it recharges your special moves that can be used to damage them faster, but some attacks are unparryable, so beware. I know the other two had bosses, but they were pretty forgettable besides maybe Dr. Octopus from the first game. But here a lot of them were pretty memorable and challenging. Sandman, the Lizard, Kraven, and even the final boss are really fun. Okay, back to the plot. When Peter brings Connors back, Connors tells him I can't fucking talk. Connors tells him that the suit's an alien and he needs to get rid of it immediately. Peter refuses, telling him that it makes him a better Spider-Man before leaving. If you consumed any other Spider-Man media before, all of this will seem relatively familiar. Peter keeps the black suit on, it starts to affect the way he acts. It gets a slight redesign to look slightly alien or angrier, and it takes Peter on a joyride to fuck up some hunters while he's asleep. I appreciate the use of other playable characters so you can get a taste of how Peter looks in his friend's POV. The MJ stealth mission where you have to avoid hunters and catch up with Peter was pretty intense, and the Kraven boss as Peter was great. But what caught me off guard was when Miles showed up and the health bar for Peter showed up. They made this meme canon, but I'm getting a little too ahead of myself. Speaking of Miles, well, I don't have much to say for his subplot because it doesn't get as much focus as Peter's, but I will say that Mr. Negative's redemption was nice, and Miles helping Peter remove the symbiote was cool.
Spider-Man didn't save me back there. Miles did.
Peter, no, don't give them ammo. Back at the lab, Peter is about to destroy the symbiote since Norman is working on an alternate cure for Harry. But Harry is kind of mad at Peter for hoarding the suit and leaving him to die, so when he gets the symbiote back, it transforms him into Venom. Okay, let's stop and talk about Venom. Venom is one of the most important characters in the Spider-Man mythos. Like I said, I don't read the comics, but I know enough to understand the basic appeal of Venom. Eddie Brock forming a symbiotic relationship with the symbiote turns him into a monster somewhat resembling Spider-Man. I know Venom has had other roles in media, but his initial motive was to kill Peter Parker purely out of revenge. Insomniac decides to change things up a bit by making Venom Harry Osborn instead of Eddie Brock. I don't mind the change as long as it's good, and so far they're building up Harry and his resentment towards Peter pretty decent so far. And it's just a generic alien wants to take over the world plot. What the hell?
When you were under the influence, certain sounds made you weak.
That fell. But we can't just carry it around.
No, but I have this mixing app on my phone.
Yeah, as much as I was liking the story, the third act is where it all starts to get pretty mediocre at best. Venom was a focal point of most of the advertising, but really I think Kraven was the best antagonist to come out of this game. I've only ever seen him in Spectacular Spider-Man, and I wasn't a fan of when they turned him into a furry as much as I loved that show. Yeah, no, Kraven was really interesting in this game. Peter had to spend half of the game only to turn a little bit monstrous. Meanwhile, when Venom gets the symbiotes on random people during the third act, it instantly hypnotizes them and turns them into zombies. Consistency, what's that? Also, this is probably just a me thing, but I think the MJ fight was pretty pointless. I know she and Peter were having a rough time, but it was pretty much resolved when Peter called her to let her know that he was back to normal. All they needed was maybe a cutscene or two to show some character moments to solidify that they were on good terms. Having MJ say all her concerns when she's under the influence of a parasitic alien silly string was gameplay time that should have been spent somewhere else. Anyway, when Peter and Miles go to City Hall to investigate, Peter gets infected again. Using Martin Li's power, both Li and Miles go into Peter's mind to heal the mental scars inflicted by the symbiote once and for all. After a nice character moment between the two, we get this. This is the anti-Venom suit. Was this really necessary? I don't want to keep complaining, especially since this is the first review of mine where there's plenty of bad things to be said, but this third act is just kind of the worst part of the game. Let me explain. So, the symbiote arc is supposed to be an allegory for addiction. When Peter uses the suit, it makes him feel stronger and better about himself, but it was also doing harm to him, both physically and mentally. It was also destroying his relationships with his loved ones. The symbiote was venomous to him. Oh, that's why he's called Venom. Giving Peter symbiote abilities back for the climax is fucking stupid. It would be more impactful if he fought Venom in his classic suit that I've had equipped on Peter for the entire playthrough, and if Peter used his metal legs again. The anti-Ock suit kinda made sense, but the anti-Venom suit is the equivalent of taking Super Nuere to fight the Nuere monster. I don't know if I can say that word on YouTube, so I'm censoring it. Well, Peter's new suit is a bad choice, but at least we still have Oh, what the fuck are you wearing? This suit comes out of fucking nowhere. Like, Peter and Miles meet up on a rooftop and suddenly Miles is wearing this. Apparently it was a tie-in for Adidas, but like, that's not an excuse for it to look like shit. Just look at Nike's tie-in with Into the Spider-Verse. I took a look online and a lot of people called this suit racist, and yeah, it kinda is. Again, I'm not black, so I really am not in a position to speak about this, but did they really have to pick something that looks this ugly? People suggested his 10th anniversary suit to be his Miles Morales original, and yeah, it looks 10 times better.
One of one.
Looks good.
Now it's not.
Yeah, what are you, out of your mind? I mean, what? I don't understand that. What's that like?
You're such a loser.
I hate you!
So anyway, MJ, Peter with the anti-Venom suit, and Miles with the anti-Black suit form a plan to stop Venom's extraterrestrial takeover. Here's something positive for once: the final MJ mission is really good. The setting mixed with the enemies you defeat really doubles down on my Resident Evil comparison from earlier. I mean, you can't say the symbiote monsters don't look like lickers. There's even a boss fight here. Speaking of bosses, it's time for the final boss. The first phase has Peter fight Harry as they argue back and forth, and the second phase has Peter get with the particle accelerator ready to kill the symbiote while Miles fights Harry. Gameplay and visual wise, this fight is amazing. It was pretty challenging and Venom with wings was really cool, but emotionally it was the most bland thing ever. I only say this because the Doc Ock fight from the first game set the bar really high for an emotional climax. Ending time. Harry gets the symbiote off and is hospitalized. Norman now hates Spider-Man. Anyone else think this was really sudden? They tease him becoming the Green Goblin for Spider-Man 3, and Peter takes a break from becoming Spider-Man to focus on himself. I don't mind, but if Miles is gonna be the main Spider-Man for now, or at least until Peter gets back in the flow, please get rid of that suit. So that was Spider-Man 2. Gameplay-wise, it's definitely improvement from its predecessors, but its story ends up falling flat, especially during the third act. If you don't care, I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun with this, just as much as the other two, but honestly, I can't imagine anyone not caring about the story in these games. They're such a big part of their identity, and seeing them get a little generic at the end is disappointing. I think it would have been improved slightly if Miles and Peter were their classic suits and Peter didn't have the symbiote, and of course, a better thought out Venom, but I can only hope that the next game set in this universe will be greater. Okay, I think I had my fair share of New York for a while, unless I make a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe video. I don't feel like reviewing Batman Arkham Asylum just yet. Maybe I'll just review another PlayStation game. I'm too tired to think of a clever segue into revealing what it is. I'm just gonna be reviewing God of War 1 and 2 next time. Goodbye!